In this video, I'm going to show you how I built this desk out of reclaimed oak that we took out of local barns. This was a custom order for one of our customers, a local dentist. He wanted this for his office. So let's get started. It felt like there were about 1,000,000 pieces to this desk. Right now, I am rough cutting some of them to size. Now I'm getting to the joiner, and some of these needed 2 rough sides and 2 clean sides, and that's the ones I'm working on right now. The clean sides I'm cleaning up on the joiner, and you can see I keep measuring in between each pass to make sure they're the size I want them to be or close to. So here's what one looks like. It still has 2 rough sides on the outsides, and then those 2 clean sides will face in. Obviously that was just a small example of those, and then the rest of the pieces could go through the planer. They just needed 1 rough side facing out, and everything else wouldn't be seen. So they went through the joiner first to get a flat side, and then through the planer to get flattened out. Now they're going to go through the table saw to get the 3rd side straightened out. And I'll still have 1 rough side that will face out. And I'm not going to show all those either. There's a bunch of little pieces to this desk, and I'm just giving you an idea of how I went about that. Now this 2x4 is the backbone to the desk, and that made me a little nervous because, you know, I'd rather have 2 long aprons going across it like a regular table does, but with sitting in the middle of this with the drawers on each side, and it has a keyboard drawer right in the middle, so I couldn't really put an apron across the front of it, and I'll show you how I got around that in a little bit. It came out very solid, but I honestly was a little nervous about that. So right now I'm just getting this 2x4 to the dimensions I need it to be, and it's just like the other pieces. It just needs 1 show face. The rest of them can be clean. So, you know, it went through the joiner and through the table saw and to get it all straightened out. And on something like this, especially with this rough sawn wood, I like to get as much of it sanded as possible before I get it assembled. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm getting these rough sides sanded up. And I'll go back and do a final sanding again after I get it all put together. This just gets the majority of the work done. And these are going to be the panels. You know, it had a lot of panels. It had 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 panels in it. 4 of them were the same size, larger panels, and then the 2 smaller panels that went on the fronts. All these pieces will end up being those panels. They went through the planer just to get them all roughly the same thickness. I didn't necessarily care about them being perfectly flat, because I've got to keep that rough front face. But they went through the planer to get them all basically the same thickness, and now I'm putting this 1 edge through the joiner to get a straight edge, and then we'll go over to the table saw and get a final straight edge on that side and get it parallel to the other side. And every one of these boards was a different width, so I had to measure each one and change the table saw each time. And now I'm laying out my panels, and with all those boards being the different widths, you know, I've got to put different ones together for each one to make a panel. So I'm just sorting through all these boards and figuring out which ones go with which ones to make the panels that I need. This is going to be the last big panel. Got it figured out. Now I just have the 2 small panels on the front. And that's going to work. So we'll get all those glued up. Get them set off to the side, let the glue dry, and move on to something else. I like to use sawdust, especially on this rough sawn stuff. I like to use some sawdust to clean up the glue in there. Any that doesn't get sanded off. It just adds to the look of the old wood, so it doesn't bother me at all. Obviously, I don't like seeing the glue, so I use the sawdust to hide the glue, I guess, in those joints. Now, obviously, this is the inside face, and I'm just cleaning up the glue squeeze out with a belt sander. And going across the grain like that will leave a lot of scratches, but that wasn't a concern of mine. Those are going to be the inside of the panels. You're never going to see those. And now I'm going to start on the slots. Almost every one of these pieces needs slots on, most of them on two sides. They're going to have a panel coming in on both sides, and some of the legs needed stop dados, and that's what I'm working on right now. I'm marking out where those need to go, and I'm going to drop that down onto the blade and then stop at my mark and pull it off. Now I'm waiting for my blade to stop because that didn't go quite far enough. I need to line it back up, draw another line, and try that again. And now I'm testing to make sure that I'm putting all this together with dowels. I'm just doing some little test drill holes here to make sure everything's going to work out right. And as you can see, I'm remarking where my dados need to stop. And once again, I'm going to mark that for a third time. But once I get this set up finally, then I'll run the rest of them through and I'll get this right. So third time's a charm, hopefully. Drop it one more time. And now we'll start running the other pieces. Finally have my lines where I want them and know where I need to start and stop. So that's how that works. I just drop it down on the blade at my mark and then stop at my other mark. Now the long 2x4 running across the front, it's going to have a stop dado on both ends. So I'm going to mark where I need to stop there. And like a big dummy, I do I'm thinking stop dado, but I need this. That's the way I need to go. I don't need to drop it on there. And it wasn't quite far enough, so I'm going just a little further. And that was where it needed to be. Now, I need to reference the same side of the board each time, so all of these joints mark up or line up. I've got to reference the clean side of the 2x4. The other side's rough cut, so I had to move the fence over to I hope that makes sense. But with that one side still rough sawn, it's not flat, it's not straight, so I had to move my my table saw fence over to the other side to get that lined up right. Now I'm marking where those dados need to stop because that dado blade is obviously round and it leaves a round edge as it comes out of that stop dado. So I've got to use some chisels to finish up that cut. And there weren't too many of those, so this didn't take too long, but it's just the four legs that need this. All the rest of the dados went all the way through, so those weren't a problem. These were the only ones I had to do this with. And this doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be deep enough for that panel to fit in. Now we're back to the panels, and I'm going to get a straight cut on one side, and the other side will go through the table saw. I'll do the width on the table saw and the length, but I need to get straight and square, a straight and square edge on this one side, and then the other side will go through the table saw. So I'm using the track saw to do that, and then we'll move to the table saw for the other two sides. And I actually make a mistake in this part of the process, checking the fit there, and that works out perfect. That's good. So we're going to run the rest of them through. But my front two panels, I ended up, after I got them cut, I laid everything in. You'll see up here, but I'll lay everything out, and the panels ended up being a little skinny, so I had to go back and find my cutoffs for those panels and glue a little piece back on. It came out fine. You couldn't even tell where I cut the boards off, so that worked out. Now we're gonna lay everything out here and make sure my panels are the right size and everything looks like it's coming together. With all these parts and pieces, I did this several times through the process just to see it all together and see how it was going to work. So getting everything laid out here, checking it out, and then this is going to be one of the side panels, one of the big panels. I'm using some other legs on it just to see. That's down going back. I found those boards that I cut off those front panels, figuring out what part I need to cut off there to glue it back on. Just a small piece, had to have it. So we'll get those panels back in clamps to get that screw up glued back on. And obviously working with reclaimed lumber helps with things like that. It hides a lot of mistakes. So now I'm going to start drilling about 1 million dowel holes to get ready to put this whole thing together. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm sure you've seen me use this dowel jig before. It's an awesome little jig. It's very handy. It perfectly centers all your holes, so it's perfect for putting something like this together. If you don't have a Festool domino, which I haven't invested in yet, so I'm still working with dowels on stuff like this. We do a lot of mortise and tenon joinery on tables and different things, but in this instance, it was a lot easier to put all this together with dowels and this dowel jig, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm not going to show you drilling all these holes, so don't be too impatient with me. Anytime you can use another piece instead of measuring to mark where you need to do whatever you need to do, that's always the more sure way that something's going to work out. That shorter piece is the leg that goes underneath the 2x4, and the longer one is the leg that goes on the end. And obviously I need those two to line up for that bottom board that's going to run across underneath that panel. So I used the shorter leg to mark where that was going to be. Now I'm laying everything out again. I'm laying this out now so I can see exactly where my holes need to go into that 2x4 for that middle leg. When you're using like that dowel jig I have, you've got to pay attention to how you're clamping it on your piece, so so your hole lines up, to your other piece. If that makes any sense at all. So that's what I'm doing right now, is thinking about the direction that leg is going to set when it attaches, so I can put my dowel jig facing the same direction on both pieces. And I'm making little reference notes on there with my pencil as I go, so later as I go to assemble this, I won't forget what I'm doing. When you have 1,000 pieces like this, it can get confusing pretty quickly. So I try and make as many notes as I can as I go. I'll write right on the pieces with a pencil and just sand it off later, so I can keep track of what's going where and just what's going on. Now this piece, I just cut a piece of scrap that was the same width as the legs and used the dowel jig on it, because I can't clamp the dowel jig right here. So I drilled holes in this piece of wood, and I'm using it as a reference to drill my holes for that piece that comes in right there, and you'll see how that all comes together here in just a little bit. Got to do one more on the other side. I've already got marked where it needs to go. I'm using a square to make sure I'm square there, and obviously having problems holding that and putting a clamp on it at the same time. Went perfect the first time. Second time I had problems. And then my clamp is actually in the way to finish that second hole, and you see I'll have to take it off to finish that second hole. But it's already started, so I'm good. I just had to go a little further in there. Now we're going to get all the dowels cut up. Cutting about 1 million of those up on the bandsaw, and then we'll go over to the sander and just clean up the ends of all those dowels, and that just makes it a little easier whenever you're assembling. I just do a little round over edge on the end of each side of the dowel, so when I'm going to put it all together, it works out. And laying all your pieces out over and over is not a bad idea. This, as I was laying everything out, I realized this corner in this 2x4 back here was going to be in the way of the panel coming in, so it had to come out. So I got the chisel out and notched this little corner edge out where this panel comes in right here. And there's a little rotten spot on this one, but it's facing in. It actually breaks off as I'm doing this, but not that big of a deal, because you'll never see it anyway. So it's on the inside of the project there. You can see it's dark outside. I worked late this day trying to get this. I'm gonna get this one side and clamps, let it set overnight, and then tomorrow morning I'll get the other side and clamps. Obviously this is a race against the clock, trying to get all these parts and pieces put together before as your glue is drying. Doing a mock-up beforehand so you know what you want to put together first and how it's all going to go together is not a waste of time at all. Otherwise you'll be pulling your hair out while you're assembling when you've got a million pieces like this. There's a couple of times you'll see that even doing that, I get ahead of myself and have to take something back apart to put a piece back, to put a piece in where it needs to go. But it all turned out in the long run. So this is the leg it's going to go on the end. I've already got the inside leg done on this one side. This will be the end leg. And when that goes on, that covers up the end of that 2x4, so you've got rough sawn facing out all the way around. We'll get that leg clamped on, and then I'll start building the rest of the box. Got the square out just to make sure I'm square, and everything's looking good so far. Now we'll get this first side panel put in. Got parts and pieces to this thing everywhere. The panels are sitting over there on the joiner. You know, the bottom pieces are all 2x2, but these top pieces are 2x4 to give it a little more strength. They're probably, you know, I can't remember exactly now. I think they were 3 1/4, 3 1/2, something like that. Now this is we'll get the other panel put on here, and then the front I'll put all together. I'll put together all together and then put it on at the same time. And those front pieces that you'll see here in a little bit are something that I screwed up. I put slots on the sides of those that face in where there'll be drawers in there, and I put slots in there as if I was putting a panel. You don't really see it because the drawers are in there, but it was just something that wasn't necessary. That if I had thought about it a little better as I was doing all that, I would have not done that. But mistakes are always made. It's just how well you can hide them, I guess. So I'm going to get the front section assembled all together, and then we'll put it all in. Now see, you can see that slot there. That slot facing right there, not necessary. I'm not putting a panel in there. I'm trying to figure out where all my parts and pieces go. There's just too many of them. It's a little confusing. We'll get the other leg on here, and then get that clamped down to the rest of it. I didn't video gluing the top of this up. I have almost every video I build or I make, there's a top glue up. So if you want to see me glue up a top, you know, watch another video. This thing came out 55 minutes after I got everything edited. If I had the top glue up in there, it'd be another 5 or 10 minutes longer. So didn't think that was really necessary. Like I said, I glue up a top in almost every single video, and I have several other videos with rough sawn wood like this. So if you want to see my process of gluing up a rough sawn top, you can check out one of those other videos. And obviously gluing up these side panels was something similar to that on a smaller scale. And there's a few other small steps here and there that I did not get videoed, but all the main things, all the important stuff, I did get on tape, so they're in here. Just getting clamps put on everything, and I'm getting ready to go home for the night, and then come back in the morning and take it all off and start on the other side. I watch Blacktail Studio videos, and that guy, he's a good talker. I mean, he talks through all of his videos. I don't know how. I wish I had that gift of gab that he has, because it doesn't. Even though he talks the entire video without, I don't know if there's a. There's a lot of times in my videos where there's some quiet spots where I just really don't have anything to say, and I'm not sure how he does that. I wish I had that talent. So I just got all that put together and saw that my box isn't quite square, so I put that clamp down there on the tabletop just to keep from the back end from moving. And I'm going to use another clamp to pull the front end over a little bit. So the front side of that clamp is on my table and the back side is on the box. And I've got a square in there and I'm pulling it over with that clamp until my square shows that it's square. Now I'm just cleaning up a little bit of glue squeeze out with some sawdust before it's all dry. That fills in any little gaps and cleans up the glue. Now this is the next morning. I'm going to get that off. We're going to flip it around and start working on the other side. It's basically the same thing, but I do have some other angles of it coming together. I've put the camera in a different spot so you can kind of see it going together from a different angle, I guess. I started taking these clamps off and I realized I was just going to need them all for putting this other side together, so I just left them and figured I'd take them off as I went. That's that part that I had to glue back on, and like you can see there that you can't even tell that I'd cut it off and glued it back on. That worked out really well. So I'm getting everything laid out to get started. Putting this side together. And here we go. I promise I'm going to move the camera here in just a minute. It was laying down the first time, so this is the same thing I did before, but now it's standing up on this end. And here's a mistake I've already made. This little piece needs to go in before that leg goes on. I got ahead of myself, so I'm going to have to knock it back off so I can get it on there. Already forgotten what I did last night and the order I went in. Went together perfect last night, and today I'm having problems. So I'm going to, since I don't have a front apron going across this, I'm going to put another 2x4 between these two. There's going to, like I said, there's going to be a keyboard drawer right in the middle, and I decided where that was going to end up, and I put a brace behind that between these two boxes just to add a little strength. There's just a small clip of me doing that, but you'll see me putting that on here in just a little bit. And this end, I'll put this piece on, and then the next clip you're going to see the end leg on there already, right there. I put it on off camera, so I just deleted that out because you couldn't see me doing it anyway. Where the camera was sitting, you couldn't see it going on. Not that big of a deal. And this one was a tight fit, and it doesn't go together perfectly right here, but before I got done I got it all situated and put in there correctly. You can see right there it's not sitting quite right, but it will by the time I get done. I'm going to get my front pieces put on here. And you see I went in a little different order on this one than I did the other one. The other one I put the front assembly all together in one piece and then attached it to the rest. But it worked out pretty well both ways. So, and right there I was putting arrows showing those slots that I didn't need, because there's going to be drawers in that hole. There's not going to be a panel. There's no need for those slots. I got a little excited when I was cutting slots. If I needed to, I would have cut some small pieces of wood up and put them in those slots, to fill them. But really wasn't necessary. Once the drawers go in, you don't ever see them anyway, so not that big of a deal. And for some reason, this didn't quite want to go together. It finally pops into place, and you can hear it when it pops, but it's not quite square yet. But once I get it all together, I'll make sure I get it. I'll test it. I'll put a square in there and make sure it's all squared up. After I get all the joints closed up. And they surprisingly, after the glue dried, they stayed square, so that worked out well. That's not always the case with rough sawn lumber. It's hard to get things perfectly square when you've got a face that isn't flat and straight. The inside faces all were, and it worked out in the long run. So. Just trying to get all my joints closed up good. And that box isn't square either, so I'm going to pull it over a little bit with a clamp until it's square, and we'll let that dry. I always like to check all four corners because sometimes just one of them's off for some reason. Now these little blocks I put in every corner just to add a little more strength and to hold it square. So that's what these guys are doing. There's 4 on the bottom and 4 on the top. I put them in all 8 corners of each box. So I did 16 of these little dudes. And I just show putting that one in, but it's the same thing over and over. That's the piece right there I'm talking about. I put in behind the keyboard drawer just to try and give it a little more strength. And then obviously once you attach the top, that adds to it also. Now these are runners that my drawer glides are going to be attached to, and I did not glue those to those panels because they're going across the grain. I just put 3 screws in them to hold them on there. That's worked out well for me. We haven't had any issues with that, so not a big deal. But I was a little concerned with wood movement, so I didn't glue them on. I just put 3 screws in them. And you can see as I start here again, I've already got the bottom one in, but I've got some spacers that I cut that I'm using underneath each one to get them all lined up so they're the same on both sides. That little wood spacer is just sitting there. I just cut that out of a piece of scrap. It's just sitting there to hold it in the right spot until I get it nailed and screwed in. I just pop some finish nails in there just to hold it in place until I can get my screws in. Now we're going to start on the drawer boxes. All these pieces, they did get jointed and planed on both sides. Because drawer boxes have got to be perfectly straight and square, and there's not really any need for them to be rough sawn on any side. They'll get a separate face on them that will be rough sawn. So from the outside, you'll see that rough sawn face, but the box itself, even though I still made it out of the old oak to keep it in character with the rest of the desk, it's all flat and straight. Now these are 2 separate panels I'm gluing up at the same time. The bottom one I just finished, and now I'm working on the top one. So those are 2 separate panels, and I've just got them in the clamps at the same time, safe clamps. Get a top clamp on there. And those are for the bottom drawers are going to be file drawers, and the top drawers are just small whatever drawers. So the bottom drawers had to be fairly deep to have hanging files in there. Now I've got those out of clamps. I've sanded those panels, and we're going to get the ends cut up or cut square, and I'm just going to do that on the miter saw. cut one end square and then cut the other side to the final dimension. So go against that block, and that gets them all the same, makes them all square and gets them all the same length. Now I'm going to build my drawer boxes with box joint or finger joint corners, and that's what I'm laying out here. I've got a couple scrap pieces that are the same thickness as the pieces I'm going to use to build my drawers out of. And I'm just doing a little test right now. So your blade needs to be the same height as the thickness of your pieces, if that makes sense. So that's what I was doing at first. I was bringing the blade up to the thickness of the piece, and now I'm just doing a little test run here, and that looks good. This is a little time consuming, but it's a very cool look. And you can see there when I finished that cut, I marked it with my pencil. That's so I know which one goes with which corner. So when I get done with each side, I'm going to put a little number on it and just match those numbers up when I go later to assemble it. And that looks like a little bit of a loose fit. They go together pretty easy there. But once you get glue in that joint, it worked perfectly. Don't worry if it feels a little too loose. Obviously, if you've got gaps, that's one thing. But if it goes together a little too loose, once you get your glue in there, it'll be a good fit. Now, once you do your last cut on your first panel, you've got to spin it around and put it back on the key, and then start your next panel off of that one, and that gets you a matching side, and that's why you've got to mark each one, so when you go to assemble later, you'll have those matching sides together. I'm not going to show you all the drawers. This will be the last one I show you right here, and then we'll go to putting in a slot in the bottom for the bottom of the drawer to set in. So that's what I'm doing right now, is cutting that slot. I'm just cutting a through dado all the way through, and that'll leave a small little hole on the side when you assemble it, but that doesn't bother me at all. It all depends on where it lands on your fingers there, and you'll see in the final video when it's all together, you can see a small little hole there. And I've seen some guys do some different things. You can either line that slot up with one of your fingers, so it's hidden in the finger, or you can cut a little piece of wood to put in that hole, but it doesn't bother me at all. I just left it there. You can see the bottom panel of this. It broke on me after it was glued up, but not a big concern. The whole thing is sitting in those dado slots in the bottoms of these side pieces, so I wasn't concerned about it. It just goes with the whole reclaimed look. Not that big of a deal. I mean, it has little nail holes all through it anyway. The downside to building drawers like this, it requires a lot of clamps. At least it does for me. I want to make sure everything's pulled tight and as square as possible. So I go through and check all my corners and make sure I'm all square. And before you assemble a drawer, at least before I assemble a drawer, I like to sand the inside faces of them. It's much easier than trying to sand them later after they're already put together. And I'm not going to show you building all the drawers either. This will be the last one. One small one and one big one here. And you can see this is a little time consuming, but it sure is a cool look when you get done. So for me, it's on certain projects it's worth it. I really like the look of it with this project. So for me, it was worth doing. Get that bottom panel slid in there. and that does not. You don't want to glue that in. So you want that to be floating, so it can move around in the bottom down there. So if your wood ever expands or contracts, that's not fighting against the sides, I guess. Like I said, this is a little time consuming doing all this, but it sure is a cool look when you get done. And it's solid as a rock. That's never coming apart with all those joints glued together like that. This is my day off. That's why I'm in sweats. We have a business. We have a store, and our shop is attached to the store. So, the store is open Tuesday through Saturday, and I always have my weathered goods shirt on while the store is open. But this is one of the days the store is closed. I'm in here getting these put together. And I'm back in my uniform today, getting those cleaned up. Just getting the glue squeeze out. And now we're going to get the, there's my granddaughter. She was here visiting. There she goes. So now I'm going to get these drawer glides put on here. And I've just got a flat piece of wood I'm holding on the bottom side of that wood rail that I put in there. I'm trying to do this with the camera right in front of me, so this is a little difficult here. This normally wouldn't be quite so hard, but I've got the camera in front of me. I'm trying to do this. So I'm just holding that board down below it and lining that up with the bottom of that wood rail. Just as long as your wood rail's straight, then, if you can line it up with the bottom of it, then you're good to go. So I've got those two in there, and I've got these wood. These are just once more. These are wood scraps that I've cut to use as spacers to hold my drawer where I want it, while I attach the drawer glides to it. Get those first ones put in. I'll pull it out a little bit more. Put the second ones in. And pull it out all the way and get the third ones in. 3 screws on each side. You have to move it around a little bit until you can find a hole to reach through there. And now I get the top ones put in. Same thing, I've got that wood block underneath there just to help me line it up. And I'm doing the same thing with this one. I've got little blocks cut, and I'm going to set the second drawer just on top of those blocks, and that's going to be my spacing. And even if everything isn't quite perfect, you put it together like this, it works out pretty well. All right, drawers are in. Now this just a little jig I'm throwing together to my drawers are going to have finger slots to reach in. The drawer front will have a finger slot to reach in and pull the drawer open. And this is just a little jig for my router to follow to put that finger pull on there. And this is just a little test piece of wood that I'm using to make sure I'm happy with the depth of the size of it. That's the bit I'm using right there, the core box bit. And I'll put a link to it in the description. I'll have a link to all the tools that I use in the description. If you want to look any of them up, you can click on those links and go check them out. And I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on any of those and buy something, then I'll make a little bit of money. It won't affect your price at all, though. So this is the top drawer, and the top drawer is going to get one of these on the front and the back. On the top of it, it's going to get on the back so you can pull it open. The front of it is going to get it on the bottom so you can reach into that bottom drawer, and that'll make more sense once I get them mounted on there. You'll see how this works. I actually really like how this turned out. I like the looks of it a lot. I thought it was pretty cool. So this is the front of one of the bottom drawers. Just getting it sanded and cleaned up. And we'll get it mounted on there. Now I've got some blocks sitting on my workbench there to stand it on. Right now I'm just seeing how it all looks. And that's what I'm talking about. See, it's got the front one so you can get your fingers in there to open the bottom drawer up. Now I'm just running some pilot holes through this is my drawer box. I've pulled it out and I'm putting some pilot holes in there to attach the front to. And then I'll come back through with this countersink bit just so my screws will sit flush in there. That just puts a little indentation in there for the screw head to sit down in. Put our drawer box back in and get the front of it lined up where I want it. You see I've just got some blocks down there for it to set on top of. Trying to get it as straight as possible. I'm just going to put this clamp on there temporarily to hold it while I get it all lined up. And I'm going to use the front. I'm going to set the next one on top of this one, so I want to get it as perfect as possible. I'm going to take that temporary clamp off and put a little stronger one on there to hold that in place while I screw my front on. And I'm just going to reach inside there and put those screws in. And I've already got screws in my box, but there's holes in my box for the screws. But I'm coming back with the drill bit and going into that hole a little bit into the front to make a pilot for the screws to go in there. And I've got 6 screws in this big drawer front to hold it on. And it's a pretty heavy drawer front, so I wanted to make sure it had plenty of holding power. So that guy is on there. Now we're going to open and close it a couple times. And now I'll come back with the front and do the exact same thing with it. See, I've got set that little spacer there. It's like 1/8 of an inch thick. Just a little gap between the two drawer fronts. And I did the same thing with it. I pre-drilled the drawer box, and it's going to get 4 screws to hold this on, just one in each corner. Pre-drilling into the front and then putting the screws in. And there we go. Now I'm going to open and close it 3 or 4 times just to, one more time. Oh, yeah, there we go. Now those bottom drawers are going to have files in them. And I put some, I thought these were pretty cool. I just made some little, you'll see, I don't even know what to call them. Little thing for the files to hang on. So that's what I'm doing right now. And that block I'm using to push those pieces through that blade, it has that handle on the top, and then that whole block on the bottom is sacrificial, so it can just go right through the. I've got a piece of wood on the back side of it screwed to it that hangs down a little bit to push on the back of your wood. And that can go right through your blade And when it gets too cut up, I'll just either replace it or cut the bottom of it off and keep going until it's gone. But I start with my fancy little push block here and realize I needed to switch to that other one that was going to get in the blade. So here I'm cutting a corner off, and you'll see how that works here in a minute. I'm lining it up by sight and running that through and cutting that corner off there. And that's what the file, whatever you file folder thingamajigger is going to hang on. You'll see. Just wait. I don't know what to call it. Let me get this sanded up. And see, that's what it looks like. It'll make more sense when I put it on here. I'm going to glue and finish nail this on. Kind of a pain in the ass. Get a clamp on there. I'm using a little square so they're all hanging in the same spot. And I'm just going to throw some finish nails in there to hold it in place while that glue dries. And that one's on there. And that's how it's going to work. See, those just hang on there. Now James is using a biscuit joiner to put slots in here to attach our top with. We use these little tabletop clips right there. And I'm not going to show that part of the process, but those little clips go into those slots, and those hold the top on. They allow the top to move so it can expand and contract when the air conditioner comes on or the heat comes on. And now we're drilling holes for our feet. I like to put adjustable feet on just about everything. For one, it keeps the wood up off the floor, so if the floor ever gets wet, it's not soaking up into your project. And also, if the floor is not perfectly flat or your project isn't perfect, you can screw one of those little feet out to straighten things up. And this is going to be this is the bottom side of the keyboard drawer, and I don't show mounting it, but I'm putting a little slot across the front side of the bottom to just a little finger slot to pull it open with. And I want it a little deeper, so I'm just doing one more pass to make it a little deeper, a little longer. Like I said, I don't show putting that on there, but there it is attached. I just ordered those drawer glides off of Amazon. They have you'll see, I'll go up closer here in a minute and you'll see how those hang down. And I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in those too. But here it is all done. We used a flat finish on it from Vermont Natural Coatings. It keeps a real natural look, but completely seals everything up. And as you can tell, it looks like the natural wood, but it has a nice soft flat finish on it. And when you touch it, you can tell it has a finish on it, but it definitely keeps a flat look to the wood, which is what we wanted in this project. I'll open the drawers up one more time. And then I'll pull that keyboard drawer out here at the end, and you can see how it all came together. I love that box joint or finger joint down the side of those drawers. You can see that little hole I'm talking about on the side there. Doesn't bother me at all, but I guess it does bother some people because they do go back and will fill that hole or do something so that hole's not there, but I'm not too worried about it. I loved how this turned out. My customer loved it, so it was a good project, cool project. Definitely ended up being a one-of-a-kind piece. You'll never see another desk that looks quite like this one. And there's that keyboard drawer. Has that pull underneath there to put your finger in. And you can see how that attaches. It just hangs there. And that's the project. I would love for you guys to give us a like if you like the video. Leave a comment would be outstanding. Share the video. Anything you can do to help us out would be great. Thanks for watching.